Oh, her? He said with a smile. She's just a friend. The woman beside him set her glass down. Slowly. Deliberately. No one in that room realized he had just said that. To the woman funding the entire deal. The evening had been described in the invitations as a private investor celebration. The kind of event where the right handshake can close a $40 million deal and the wrong word can end a career before deserved. The Harlow Grand Hotel in Manhattan had been rented out floor to floor. Canapés on silver trays, string quartet near the East Wing. And everywhere you looked, men in expensive suits deciding who mattered and who didn't. Damien Ashford, 38, founder of Ashford Capital, had arrived with a woman on his arm that his colleagues had never seen before. She was composed, quietly elegant. The kind of presence that didn't ask for the room, but got it anyway. Her name was Adiz. And Damien had just introduced her as just a friend. What Damien didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the lead investment from funding the entire deal they were about to close was called Obi Nuso Holdings. And Adiz Obi Nuso was its CEO. Golden Heart Stories, where dignity always wins. Damien had proposed 3 months ago. Private rooftop, single diamond. He had cried. She had said yes. But in rooms like this, professional rooms, powerful rooms, rooms where his reputation lived, she had noticed a pattern. He never said fiancé. He said colleague or friend. Once, memorably, someone I know. She had raised it twice, quietly. The way she did everything. You disappear me in public, she had told him the week before. I just don't mix business and personal, he'd said, you know that. She had looked at him for a long moment. I know a lot of things, she'd said. He hadn't asked what she meant. His business partner, a loud man named Preston Webb, was the first to make it worse. Preston leaned toward Damien with a grin that didn't bother hiding itself and said, loudly enough for the small cluster of investors nearby to hear, "You brought your girlfriend to a deal dinner, Ash, that's bold." Damien laughed. "She's naughty, I mean, she's a friend. We go way back." Adiz picked up her champagne again. Her expression didn't change. But the woman standing 2 feet to her left, a silver-haired investor named Margaret Crane, who had been in this industry longer than most of the men in this room had been in business, caught Adi's eyes and held them. Something passed between them. Recognition and patience. The formal portion of the evening began at 8. Damien took the floor with the ease of a man who had rehearsed this moment for years. He walked through the development project, a luxury residential complex in 3 cities, with a projected return that made the room lean forward. The financing structure, he said, is fully backed. We've secured a lead institutional investor whose portfolio speaks for itself. He clicked to the next slide. The logo read Obi Nuso Holdings. And Adiz watched from her seat near the back as not a single person in that room connected the name to the woman who had been introduced as just a friend. Preston Webb raised his glass. "Whoever locked in Obi Nuso," he said, "deserves a raise." Damien smiled. "That would be me." Adiz set down her glass for the second time that night. It was Margaret Crane who moved first. She crossed the room with the unhurried confidence of someone who did not need anyone's permission to speak and extended her hand to Adiz. "I don't believe we've met formally," she said. "Margaret Crane." "Adiz Obi Nuso," Adiz said. The name landed. Margaret's expression didn't flicker, but her eyes did. "As in an?" "Yes," Adiz said simply. Margaret turned her head, slightly, towards where Damien was still holding court near the projector. "Does he know?" she asked, voice low. Adiz looked across the room at her fiancé, the man who had introduced her as nobody. "He knows me," she said. "He chose not to." The moment it broke open happened over a question about the financing timeline. One of the younger investors, eager, slightly reckless, turned toward the room and said, "Has anyone actually spoken directly with Obi Nuso Holdings? I'd feel better if we had eyes on a representative before we sign." Damien started to answer. "I've handled all the I'm here." The room turned. Adi's had stood up. Not dramatically. Not with a speech prepared. She simply stood, and the single button on her jacket, and looked at the young investor with a calm that somehow made the room smaller. "I'm Adiz Obi Nuso. I'm the CEO of Obi Nuso Holdings. And I've been in this room for the last hour and 40 minutes. The silence was architectural. It held up every ceiling in the building. Damien's face did something she had never seen it do before. It collapsed inward, not in emotion, but in the realization of math. Every comment, every introduction, every laugh, adding up in real time. Preston Webb's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. "If you have questions about the investment structure," Adiz continued, "I'm happy to answer them." She sat back down. No one said a word. If you've ever been standing in a room where someone made you invisible, comment below. She didn't raise her voice, but she didn't have to. Damien reached her during the break. He touched her elbow. She didn't move away. She didn't move toward him either. "Adiz, not here," she said. I didn't know how to." "You knew exactly who I was," she said, still not looking at him. "You chose how to introduce me. That was a choice." He lowered his voice. "This isn't how I wanted this to go." "I know," she said. "That's the problem." She hadn't told him the other part yet. Obi Nuso Holdings was named for her father. His name was Emmanuel Obi Nuso. And he had not just built a company. He had been born into one of the most prominent royal families in eastern Nigeria, a lineage stretching back for generations, with land holdings, a charitable foundation, and a level of social standing that made Damien Ashford's net worth look like a rounding error. She had never led with it, not in their relationship, not in this room, because she didn't need to. She had walked in as herself. That had always been enough. It was his choice to make it less. Margaret found her again near the end of the evening. "The board will want a direct relationship going forward," she said, "with you, not through intermediaries." Adiz nodded once. "That's agreeable. He may not survive this professionally," Margaret said. She was not unkind about it, just accurate. "He'll survive," Adiz said. "He'll just have to rebuild." Margaret studied her. "And personally." Adiz looked across the room one last time at Damien, who was now standing alone near the bar, his glass full, his partners clustered in conversations that no longer included him. "I said yes to the man I thought he was," she said quietly. "I'm still deciding if that man exists." She picked up her bag. "Have your office contact mine on Monday." And she walked out of the Harlow Grand with the same composure she had walked in with. The same woman. Seen now. Not because she had demanded it, but because she had never once pretended to be anything less. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Golden Heart Stories. New stories every week about the women who never break. They just wait for the room to catch up. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it with them. They'll know why.